Welcome, everyone, to the 22nd episode of the 792 Florida Sports Podcast. I'm your host, as always, and I'm joined by Scott from Prep Force to break down the national tournament.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. We'll start off with the South region, which will be the main focus, since this will be the first region that will release to the public for voting. Miami Northwestern gets a bye in their portion of the bracket. They'll face the winner of Colquitt County and Edna Karr. I like Colquitt in this matchup. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'd have to go with the team from Georgia in this one. The Packers didn't have the season that a lot of their fans would like, but I still think they take down Edna Karr.
All right. Columbia versus Ravenwood in the next set of brackets.
Yeah, I would go with the Florida team in that one. Ravenwood had a good season, but I would definitely side with the team from Florida.
All right. I'll take Columbia as this one as well. Oakland versus Clover. This actually might be one of those matchups. I guess I'll take Clover in this one, actually.
Yeah, this would be one I'd like to see as an early season out of conference matchup, because it kind of gives me as a national ranking guy a basis on states to look at later. I think Clover had a pretty good season. They didn't make the semifinals, but that's only because they ran into a very good Dorman team that they only lost by 3-2. And as we know, Dorman gave Dutch Fork everything they wanted in the state championship game, so I'd definitely go with Clover.
And we'll definitely hit on Dutch Fork a little bit later, too. St. Thomas Aquinas in the next bracket with a bye. They'll face the winner of John Curtis and Miami Central.
Definitely going with the Rockets in this one. They probably didn't have the season that most expected, but at the end of the season, they were right there holding the trophy again.
Yeah, and obviously they knocked off 3 undefeated Florida teams in Naples, Dillard, and Escambia on their way to a dominating performance in the finals. So I would definitely like Miami Central in that matchup. Of course, that would also set up St. Thomas Aquinas versus Miami Central, 7A champs versus 6A champs in the second round. That'll be a matchup on its own. That'll be impressive to see.
Yeah, the Raiders haven't exactly had a lot of luck with the Rockets lately.
Grayson, Georgia with a bye, facing the winner. They'll face the winner of Miami Palmetto and Valdosta in their bracket.
Yeah, this one's a toss-up for me. I mentioned, I think it depends on where this game was played. If it was played in Georgia, I'd probably go with the Georgia team. If it was played in Florida, I'd go with the Florida team. But if we're just picking right here, I think I'd probably go with Palmetto.
Yeah, I feel like Palmetto would probably be a good matchup pick in this one. And from what I can hear, they might be a very good team next year too. So they might be a team worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, for sure.
Next bracket, mini bracket. It's pretty much what they are. Mauer Creek with a bye, facing the winner of Baton Rouge Catholic from Louisiana and Booker T. Washington in Florida.
Yeah, this is another good matchup. Baton Rouge Catholic had a great season. They came up a little short in the state title game to Rummel, but I'm going to go with the Florida team in this one again. I think Booker T showed what they were made of in the state tournament, and they'd get it done.
Absolutely, and they knocked off 5 solid teams all consecutively in the state tournament to be able to, the state playoffs to be able to win the 4A state championship. I believe that was our first title since 2015. So yeah, very very good shape for this turn. So I would take Booker T in this one.
Yeah, for sure.
Archbishop Rummel versus IMG Academy. That would be an interesting matchup, honestly.
Yeah, that feels like a matchup that should come later in this tournament based on some of the other first-round matchups. But, Rummel was very good. I just don't know if they have enough to get it done versus IMG, who is loaded with all the national recruits.
I will say when I was setting these brackets up, the one thing I was looking at was like with IMG is like, who could I possibly put them against? And it makes sense early on because really you put them against most teams in the tournament, it's going to seem like you're doing it way too early, but there's only so many teams you can match up against.
Yeah.
And in the same bracket, you also got two very solid teams with Lowndes from Georgia and Armwood out of Florida.
Yeah, that's another great big-time matchup. Armwood had a really good season. They went up to North Gwinnett early and lost the heartbreaker in a game that could have gone either way. But Lowndes was on a different level this year. You definitely got to go with the Georgia team in this one. And that next round matchup of IMG and Lowndes is going to be one that tons of people are going to talk about.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping for that because that would be like something that would, I know on the forums that'll definitely get a lot of discussion, and I'm sure that on Twitter that's going to produce a lot of discussion in itself too. Columbus out of Florida with a bye, facing the winner of Edgewater and Hoover. Hoover has definitely not had the best of luck in past tournaments, and look at this matchup. They may not have the best of luck in this one either.
Yeah, I see another loss, another early loss coming their way in this one. I don't think they can compete with the big time Florida teams.
Dorman, South Carolina with a bye, facing the winner of Jones, Florida, and Warner Robins, Georgia. A lot of Florida-Georgia matchups in this tournament, but they are pretty good ones, at least.
Yeah, it's another one that I wouldn't mind seeing. I think Jones would definitely take this one home. I mean, they got beat by a good Miami Northwestern team in the title game, but other than that, their only loss was to Edgewater, which at Edgewater wasn't the worst loss of the year.
Next next mini bracket, Dutch Fork with a bye. They'll get the winner of Oxford, Mississippi, and Clearwater Academy International out of Florida.
Yeah, this would be a game I would love to see in an out-of-state matchup too, because it's a decent but not great Florida team versus the best Mississippi had to offer this year. It's a toss-up, but I actually thought that Clearwater Academy team was a decent squad, and I think they should be able to beat a team from Mississippi.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I didn't like the Mississippi. Like, there's a lot of talent in that state, but team-wise, there's you don't really have many powerhouses that come out of Mississippi for the most part.
Yeah.
I guess the talent must be more spread out and such.
Yep.
Next mini bracket, North Gwinnett out of Georgia, facing the Vance out of North Carolina and Gaffney out of South Carolina. Carolina battle there, pretty good one too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good matchup. Vance turned it on at the end to bring home the title, and I think that they would definitely take down Gaffney in this one.
The next mini bracket, Lakeland, Florida with a bye. Even though they lost in the third round to Armwood, they were just on that cusp to be able to get that little bye heading into the first round. They'll get the winner of Buford, Georgia, and Chaminade Madonna out of Florida.
Another tough Florida-Georgia game to pick. It's another one of those. I know I said it before, but tell me where the game is, and I can tell you who I think would win. Both won titles. Man, this is a tough one. Give me Chaminade.
Interestingly, I believe this is Buford's first appearance in the national tournament in the 4 years, which is kind of a surprise to me. If this tournament had started about 2 years earlier than it did, Buford probably would have been in there since the beginning, but they just haven't made the last 3 years.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising.
But yeah, I think Chaminade could pull this one off. They've already proved against Miami Central that they can beat some of the larger schools. And even though Buford's not necessarily a large school per se, when you're looking at like Georgia versus Florida, those Georgia schools, even if they're like enrollment-wise a little bit smaller, they generally are probably on par with some of the larger schools in Florida because you got probably the better coaching and usually deeper rosters.
Yeah.
In the next mini bracket, Maryville, Tennessee with the bye. They'll get the winner of Apopka, Florida, and Burns, South Carolina, which I believe this matchup has happened a couple years back as well. So a little drawback to the past.
Yeah, I think it's a good game. Apopka, of course, had their season ended in heartbreaking fashion to Columbus, from Miami, in that classic game. But I think Apopka would pull this one out. I think the Florida team would get it done versus the Carolina team.
Yeah, I agree with that. And of course, like Apopka is they're a solid team. Like usually year in year out. They may not like necessarily be like that. They're not really a national powerhouse per se, but I think in most cases they would compete with like some of those mid-level national teams, like the teams that I would say like between like ranked between like 100th and like 300 nationally. Like if you throw them against most teams in that range, they'll compete with and beat most of those teams.
Oh yeah.
And that's one like side of the bracket. On the other side of the bracket, Marietta, Georgia with a bye versus they'll face the winner Parkview, Georgia versus Thompson, Alabama.
Yeah, if Parkview were to win this game, you'd have a rematch of the Georgia semifinal game. But I don't think that would happen. I think Thompson showed this year, especially with their with their playoff run, that they were a very good team, and that trouncing of Central Phoenix City was pretty impressive. I'd go with the Warriors in this one.
In the next mini bracket, Arcadia out of Louisiana they'll get the winner of McEachern, Georgia, and Deerfield Beach out of Florida. How
did Acadian get the bye in this one is what I'm wondering, because this
it was basically random on the bye, like because originally I had it set to be 2 byes across the board for each region, which originally was Marietta and Miami Northwestern. But then when I went to make the brackets online, I was like, wait a second, this ain't gonna work. I realized that I had completely messed up the entire bracket, so I basically just had to pull some matchups out and then break them apart to fill who would be the bye week, or the bye game, or so to speak.
Yeah, so this matchup would be definitely going another Florida Georgia matchup that people would love to see. Of course, McEachern, they had to win this year over Marietta, which looked, very good based on everything that we saw at the end. They did get beat up pretty bad by North Gwinnett in the playoffs. And Deerfield Beach was one of those teams where a lot of people thought they were going to be good. They had a lot of good transfers. Of course, they didn't have their starting quarterback out of the gate, and they dropped their first 2, and everybody kind of gave up on them. But after that, they played pretty well, only with the loss to St. Thomas, and then, of course, the loss in the playoffs by a touchdown to Columbus. I think I'd go with Deerfield Beach in this one.
Yeah, I think Deerfield Beach could win this one, and I guess they pretty much get their bye week in the next one with Arcadia.
Yeah.
The next set of bracket, West Point out of Mississippi, they'll face the winner of Phoenix City Central out of Alabama.